What's up, world? It's your
Hey,
boy Tyrone Morgan coming to you today with an episode of the Soul
read
Rehab
podcast.
Podcast.
Woo!
Let's go. Woo! We're in the building today, and I am most definitely live and in color. So today, I have alongside of me the voice of reason, Miss
Hey,
Frances Sutton.
hey.
All the energy in the world. So let me throw back to her. And in her absence today, we would like to send a special shout out to the fervent servant, Miss Anisha Dawson. We love you. We miss you. Take care of yourself, dear. Enjoy this vacation away from the podcast.
Yeah.
So I ain't even gonna do a whole lot of preliminaries today. I just want to thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you watching us. We hope something is said and done today. And so the topic of today is Thotting with the Hot Boyz. Most definitely clickbait, but it is a real problem in our community for me. It's really a discussion on hypersexuality in the Black community. I felt the need to talk about it because I think we as a people, through social media, advertising, entertainment, any kind of entertainment field, that the Black community is over sexualized. And so we had, over the years, we had bought into it. We think it's nice. We think it's somebody adapting our culture, but it's really a cultural breaker for us. And so today we want to talk about this thing. So I hope you like the topic name, but I hope you like this information even better. So we're going to kick it back to the voice of the reason and let her start this thing off.
Okay. Wow. This is a hot topic. So we're ready to get started. And
No
the
doubt.
first thing we're going to kick it off with is, what does it mean to be a thought? What does it mean to be a hot boy? So I'm going to cover a little bit about that. Back in the days, and even today, they used to call women loose or hoes.
Mm-hmm.
So thought is an acronym. Our pastor Tyrone loves acronyms.
Yes.
So thought is an acronym for that hoe over there.
Nope.
That is what it means. It was actually made popular by a rapper. So again, the word thought is an acronym for that hoe over there. The definition would be a woman who has many casual sexual encounters or relationships. She is considered easy, thirsty, a slut, a whore, skank, a hoochie, a hussy, a Jezebel, and sometimes low grade or even trash. Again, the word thought was popularized by a rapper. I forgot what year it was. The word thought is not a great name to be referred to if you are. And for a second, I want to take it to biblical, back to the Bible, and illustrate how compassionate Jesus was to a woman. There's two women that come to my mind that he encountered. The first one was the woman that was brought before the public because she had committed adultery. And you can find that in John 7:53 through chapters 8 and verses 11. They had accused this woman. They shamed her. They embarrassed her. They brought her in public to kill her. But Jesus, with his loving self, was kind, compassionate, wise, and good. He stands up for this woman. He doesn't call her names. He protects her. He doesn't, and he asks the woman who without sin. No, he asks the crowd who is without sin to cast the first stone. So nobody's able to throw anything at her. So then her accusers leave. And then Jesus asks the lady, well, who accuses you? And she can't find anybody that accuses her of sin. So Jesus, again, being compassionate, never once called the woman a thought, never once called her a hoe or a slut. He says, go and sin no more. And the reason I brought this story up is oftentimes we downgrade and degrade women But instead of finding actually what the issue is, we just put them down and throw stones at them. When we too, if we look in our own closets or in our mirror, we too have sinned. Or if God had and came into our life and changed us, we would be just out there. But another story I like in the Bible that illustrates again Jesus' compassion is the lady at the well. She had 5 husbands. Jesus said, well, about the 5 husbands, and the one that you are with is not even your husband now. Again, Jesus never called her a thought, a hoe, a skank, or anything, but he had grace upon this woman. So I like those stories because it just signifies no matter who you are or what you've done, if you allow Jesus to come into your life, he could clean you up. For me, that was really good. Oftentimes we have society is condemning and degrading women way too much, throwing stones at them. And I'm going to let Tyrone talk, but I want to come back to the topic of, and this wasn't one of our questions, why is there a double standard between women and men? But again, the word thought is a bad word. It's nothing that we want our daughters to be called. It's nothing we should want to be called ourselves. And
I agree with that. I think, and one of the reasons I want to talk about this because of the hypersexuality. So that kind of goes in the last point you talked about. But one of the beliefs that I know about people that we call thoughts and stuff like that, it is a lot of times people have learned that sex equals love. And it does not. So you constantly trying to find love through sex. Sex and love is two different things. Love and intimacy is what you're looking for. You're looking for more intimacy than you are love, and intimacy does not mean sex. So we have confused them terms. And so for me, even with some women that may just be like that, but they have a lot of women that are looking for love. And they think sex means love. You have sex with me, that means you love me. So, what I don't like is that we have championed terms like this. They not only do you got a thought, which is a thirsty hoe over there, you got the goat, which is the greatest of all thoughts. You know what I'm saying? And we call women B words, and some women like it, some don't. Whatever floats your boat. Hoes, skanks. We got all these names for these women, and we as men have used these to damage the women that's around us. And I'm pointing out in the Black community because we are the one. You know what I'm saying? We the only ones that go through it. I'm saying we the one that is shown consistently over time that this is what we do to the women in the and when we get ready to talk about Hot Boyz in a second, even women and men in our community. So I want to go into what a hot boy is. A hot boy, I think they got a different name for them now. I'm gonna just use fun boy. Anyway, fun boy, hot boy, whatever it is. But it's a dude that is at the moment. He has nice clothes. He got a nice car. He got some cash. You know what I'm saying? And he carry himself, and all the women that's around they want him because he seems to be hot right now. So he always has a bunch of options with women. He always feel like he can have any woman he wants. And this is the other thing. You can be a hot boy and not really have the money part. You just got to look apart or be able to talk well. So hot boys are somebody who frivolously bounce around from woman to woman, having sex, and most time end up making babies that they don't want to take care of. So a hot boy is basically a guy with no responsibility of his own actions. And we have popularized this guy through rap, through sports, and through entertainment, because it is what's the word I'm looking for? It's not known, but it's accepted. That's the word I'm looking for. Accepted that men that in these kind of fields, drug dealers, goddamn, entertainment, rappers, sports, they are known to have multiple women, and it's okay because they got money and they can do that. So basically, a hot boy is that, and hot boys have been damaging our families for years, and over the last few years, they have become so popular. Since I grew up in the '90s, so from the '90s until 2022, you see a big difference of men. Back in the day, they were called pimps and all this other stuff. Some of them was true pimps because they was pimping out women for sex. So, they got all these things, but it's just, to me, we celebrate it so much. And I think it has been a decline in our Black families and Black communities that has damaged us. So if you want to get back to the question that you were going to ask for, we move on to the next, or how you want to do it.
Yeah. And when you was talking about Hot Boyz, I thought about that song, Papa Was a Rolling Stone.
Yeah.
Wherever he laid his hat. And I just, I remember there's two different stories. My grandfather, who I never met, he had one set of children, and then he had another set of children, all in the same housing area, like doors down. So I was talking to my uncle a few weeks ago when I took him to the doctor. I said, Granddaddy was a bad man if he could do this. And my uncle said that he never remembered the women fighting or arguing. I was like, wow. But I couldn't imagine a couple doors down, my husband having another family. But and I say that to say that the Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. Even in biblical times, this was happening. And it's still happening today. But I also remember my youngest son went to preschool in Wages in Goldsboro. And I remember asking the director why we couldn't have graduation, because they weren't going to graduate like all the other schools. And she told me, she said that there had been so many physical fights because there were fathers who had multiple children in preschool. So the women would be fighting. And I thought that was just ridiculous. So I couldn't see my son graduate because there were people that were fighting because there was multiple babies in preschool. And she said that this happened time and time again. So they finally did away with graduation and just would let them take little graduation pictures with the back and give them their certificate. But the whole milestone that many families miss of their child's life because of nonsense. So that's I could think of destroying communities. And even now with teaching in schools, I hear my students say they have a sister or a brother that's the same age as they are in the same grade, and it's from different sets of mothers, excuse me. So again, I look at that as being damaging to our community. And I think that is just crazy. But going back to the word thought, I think because you said something, you mentioned something, a lot of with the word thought and being called bees, a lot of have come to accept that. And I just don't feel like my name belongs in a sentence with those words. It's disrespectful. And we have to teach our daughters and even the young girls back, I think long ago, a lot of older women would teach our young ladies how to be ladies. And I think missing in our community, we don't have them grandmothers. We have grandmothers that are raising children and they stressed out because they raising all the children, but that's a whole nother story. But we don't have those old grandmothers that are teaching women how to be women and how they could be husbands. Because at the end of the day, we all know a man don't want a thought for a wife.
No.
But we have to teach our children not to say negative names about themselves and to accept that. And to let them know that they have purpose, that they are valuable, that they are loved, that they are worthy, and that they are enough. And I was also thinking with that how I know exactly what I was going to say. We have these TikTok videos, right? And everybody has a TikTok video. But I think my daughter made a TikTok video off of a song. Even be careful with that. And I immediately, because I heard the words to the song, I took it down. Her being innocent, she just liked the beat. Sometimes we do just like the beat, the music and everything, but the words of the song were degrading, and it wasn't fitting for a little girl to be dancing to the song. And I'm not, she was dancing nasty or anything, but sometimes we have to even be careful, because little stuff like that creeps into our children's spirit. No, you're not going to be referring to yourself as this. You're not going to be singing these songs, because that's not who you are. And I think it's important for us to definitely teach them that. And I'll say one more thing before we get to the other one. I remember my son broke up with a girl, his girlfriend, who he had loved so much. She was this, all these wonderful names. But time he broke up, she was a thought. She was she was this and that. And see, as a mother, I said, no, we're not going to do that.
Right.
She's still somebody's daughter. You just in your feelings, you know. It's okay for us to be in our feelings. But what I think we have to do, even to teach our sons, to not call women out of their name, to have appropriate names. Now, I don't know what he did when he left my house, but in my presence, he wasn't going to call a woman, because I reminded him of his sister he loved so much, who he would never call that name to. So we're going to honor our woman. And I think we in the Black community don't honor our Black women enough, and we don't honor our Black men enough. And we need to get back to the honor and the respect. But going back to the double standard, I'll let you go ahead with that.
So I think a double standard is this, because it is known for men to sow royal oats. That's what you go out and you experience the world, and then you come back and you decide to settle down and get married. That's what men are taught. We taught that over time. You hear talking to even some of the older men in the generation, they would tell you some of the same thing. Don't rush, just go out, live life. But what I don't think they realize is that when you live life, you are sleeping with the women that they telling you that want to get married one day. And so when you do all this, you go through all these relationships, hurt all these people, then you expect to be able to go into a relationship. So the double standard is taught. It's okay for men to be promiscuous, and it ain't for women. So if I had a son, I would never teach my son that, because this is the reason why I would not teach him that, because I have daughters, and I have a mama, I have aunts, I have cousins. I wouldn't even tell them. I never tell them that. But you should respect somebody. And, I want us to get out of the mindset that just because we're in a relationship with somebody, we got to sleep with them. We taught that too. It's part of a relationship. But this is the thing I found. It's much easier for you to not stay in a bad place if you ain't doing something. But some of us that have sex outside of marriage, we do have some type of moral standing. But what happens is you have sex with somebody, then you find out they're a bad person, you're going to stay even longer, because you're like, well, I done slept with them, I at least need to stay or try to make it work because I've already slept with them. So, I think we just get, and I'm a little bit off the subject, but I think we just get into these thought patterns that are taught to us, and we think it's all right, and it's not. The double standard for a man, why did he think he could do whatever he wants? Mess up all the other people's daughters, mess them up with somebody else, and then you decide you want to get married, you want to settle down, and then you got to have the woman opposite of the one that you've been messing with the whole while. So it's not fair. Never said it was fair. and I'm gonna tell you something else I don't like, and I'll probably reach this a little bit later on, but I don't like the fact that women have bought into the mess. The women can be worse than me in the same thing, because to me, if you didn't like men doing it, why did you co-sign? Why do you do it?
Or exactly.
And so you got to learn, just because somebody else do something don't mean that I do it, because I'm held accountable for what I do. And so if I'm doing what's right, don't matter if they're doing what's wrong, And the double standard is not fair. I ain't even gonna say it is, but I hate the fact that women have bought into the standard instead of holding the high ground that they should. Because like you said earlier, no man is going to want to marry a thought or a hoe. He's not. And if he does, because more than likely he don't know. And if
They
he
don't.
does, yeah, you know what I'm saying? So it's you know, I got some of that stuff later on, so I'll digress and let you go into what you think about the double standard.
I think what you said was so accurate. That young boys are taught that they're supposed to do this and that.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and we have accepted it as women, instead of holding our ground and saying, no, you're not going to do that. I think a lot of things we have tolerated and accepted and pushed back as being right. So I just definitely agree with that. Most definitely.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go to the next question?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the big one. Another big question. What is hypersexuality? What is hypersexuality?
So I looked it up because I like to kind of go off something basic because this is what the whole conversation is really about.
Yes.
So when I looked it up, it said hypersexuality is exhibiting unusual or excessive concern with or indulgence in sexual activity.
That's the definition I wrote down.
So make sure that y'all get it. It's exhibiting unusual, which it is very unusual for you to have something sexual on your mind 20 hours out of 24. Well, I say how many hours you supposed to sleep? 6 to 8. So 20 around anywhere around in the teens having sex on your mind. That's hypersexuality. So it's an unusual or excessive concern with or indulgence in sexual activity. Sexual activity is not just intercourse. It is watching porn. It is watching women shake their behind on TikTok videos. It is women lusting after men that got muscles and showing them on TV with a towel, not on TV, but on these TikTok videos with a towel wrapped around. All that stuff is hypersexuality. And I think we have been fooled into thinking that random sex is okay. And good sex is the goal of a relationship. Because that's all you hear them talk about. That if that's your goal in a relationship,
you don't need a relationship.
Yeah, you don't, because that should not be a goal of your relationship. Because a relationship is much more than that. You know what I mean? We have to understand that. So in my mind, the reason why other communities treat us different is because we walk around like a bunch of animals in heat. And I'm not saying these other communities don't do that, but what I'm saying is portrayed in the media, on social media, on TV, in rap videos, all this stuff, we are portrayed as a bunch of animals in heat. That's why you get treated as a possession or people thinking you're unintelligent because this is all they see. You got to think about it. If a person who don't know anything about a black person, never been around them enough, they have to make a decision on how black people are. They're going to see it through entertainment and TV, social media. So when you look at that, yourself, be objective. Don't be sitting there judging. Think about it. Look at what you see. And you tell me if you was the opposite race that didn't know anything about black people, what would be your perspective of a black person? And why are we the only ones being portrayed like that 75% of the time? Pisses me off. I hate it. And I really meant to say that because it really does. It is so, and we buy into it. We have seen it so much that we buy into it ourselves. And it is wrong. We are not a bunch of animals in heat. We are not our physical trait. You know, I'm going to get in some of that a little bit in a few minutes. So I don't want to get way too far ahead of myself. But that's something I want to read because I want to make sure I got that out. So part of the reason you're around here having desires, having issues, seeming like you have a split personality is because of a random and abundant sexual partner. I believe that with my soul ties. That's what that is. So they leave, I feel like they leave deposit on your soul. And now you fighting not only your soul issues, you fighting theirs. Because I think that's a real thing. I think some people, I've known people who said they had, you know, they started having random, maybe some same sex attraction or some, you know, and going through the thing that they never experienced. but it's because somebody has left a deposit on your soul. You can have a deposit left on your soul. And so now things that you never thought about, you start thinking about, and you start having these desires. So I'm gonna cool off for a minute, get off my rant, and pass the mic.
The voice level change. All right. Okay. So, but yes, I want to go back to the definition for hypersexuality and say that again. We have the same definition, but so everyone will hear that again. It is unusual or excessive concern with the indulgence in sexual activity. And if we look at the word hypersexuality, the first it started with a prefix. You know, I like to break down words. So the prefix hyper means above, beyond, super, above measure, more than usual or normal. So more than usual or normal. And let me just say this too, because this does not include just because you love the Lord doesn't mean you can't be hypersexual.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Christians that are struggling with hypersexuality. And when a person is fixated, I mean, that's the only focus on sex, sexual acts, and sexual fantasies. You might be hypersexual. And I also want to say this. A lot of times, sometimes it comes from being sexual abuse or going through sexual trauma. Sometimes it comes through physical abuse. Sometimes it comes from impaired relationships. Sometimes it just comes from life stress. And then sometimes it just comes because you choose to do it. Right. You want to do this. But let me say, most of those things, besides the one you choose to do it, is things because you have not took the time to actually do the work and heal. All those things, sexual abuse, physical abuse, all those are traumas. Impaired for family relationships, that's all traumas, and they deserve the attention to be healed. So I did want to point that out. And I guess you're ready for the next question.
Yeah, we're gonna get off that one because I'm in my feelings about it.
Okay. So our next question, and I guess I'll start this one off so you could still take a couple minutes to cool down. But why do you think this is the trend, and who pushes the trend? Now, this is my opinion. This isn't facts. This is just my personal Francis opinion, not facts. For me, I think we have to always go back and look at history. I think we always have to go back and look at things that happened before so we could understand the now, the present. And I like to think back to slavery when men and women were stripped. Our ancestors, that they were standing on auction blocks and they were sold because of their physical characteristics or their physical appearances. You know, how humiliating it had to be. Women who were raped but they had families. The Black woman was forced to nurse her mistress's children first and then hers. Often at parties or feasts, the Black woman was tossed around for pleasure and could not refuse without being faced with punishment. Back in history, nowhere do we ever see white women going through this. Humiliation or are subject to this type of behavior. I think some things are systematical. I think Black women have been viewed in the terms of property and just for pleasure and gratification for others. I think that has been since slavery times, and I'm not going to get all into it, but if you stroll down history, you will see that. I believe it's almost like a generational curse. We had some of us still are doing the same thing year after year, year after year. I definitely think anything that is pushed and recognized in our culture today has to be pushed by white America. And I say that to say, again, if you look at history, slavery stopped because white Americans got tired of it. They were upset about it. they viewed it differently. If you look at the suffrage movement, the right to vote, we were able to vote because white Americans pushed it. They got behind it. If you looked at the Black Lives Movement today, there were some white Americans that got behind that and stood because they became angry. So a lot of things I think are pushed from, even in our music today, our social media, a lot of things that go on are pushed by white America, but you don't see a lot of them up there to the levels that we have been reduced to. Now, social media, television, music, we buy into all this propaganda that this is the way it should be. All these different institutions have glorified hypersexuality in our community. Black men are seen as breeders and not fathers. Let me say that this is an insult to you, Pastor Tyrone, to my dad, to good fathers, because there are good fathers out there, but we're seen as breeders. And animals breed, not humans.
Mm-hmm. All right.
When I looked up the definition for breed, it said to produce or increase animals or plants by sexual reproduction. We can't consider our men as dogs or animals. I believe whenever you are disrespected, you don't have to allow it to continue to happen. We would refer to our women again as bees and our men as dogs and this and that. We're referring to them in a negative context. And I just hate how our people buy into continually to disrespect our brothers and sisters. I'm not going to disrespect you by putting you down. Even if I feel a certain type of way about you, I'm not going to put a negative name to you because I feel like, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, I think we have what we say.
No doubt.
And I'll stop right there.
Well, I agree with that. I mean, honestly, I do believe that the media shows us and dangles a carrot in front of us for money. We look because we feel like we always feel like we're victims. So anytime we can get something that make us go, all increase ain't good. Mm-hmm. And so when we make money off of, portraying something that they want us to portray, that is, it makes money for the entertainment world, and they push it and push it and push it, and they make money on it. Then we have other Black people who got into it and they push it because they want to think it's real life. If you think about it, there's been very few positive, especially in the last, I say 5 years, positive image of Black people on TV. You don't really see it. And even in social media, you don't have it. And to me, it's terrible because you start to mimic what you see. And so we let that be seen, and then we buy into it, making it even worse. You know what I'm saying? Making it even worse when we buy in. When we have bought into it, it has made it even worse. And we bought into it so we can capitalize on the money part of it too. I feel like the physical traits you're talking about, to me, if a woman's best asset is the first 3 letters of that word, then she is lost. It's just the way I feel about it. Same thing with me. If your money is the best part of you and that's what you show, then you are limited. So we have to get by some of the trends and things that we show and see, and we have to get rid of this desire to compare ourselves to others. There you go. We have to learn to become who we are. Identify as whoever you are. I identify as Tyrone because that's who I am. You identify as Francis because that's who you is. Quit trying to be like everybody else around us. If you conformity is something that I want you to conform to an idea, so I can capitalize on that idea. I don't have a problem with, fashions and different stuff, but if we create somebody created that fashion, right? Somebody had the courage to do it. So it's all it takes, us to have the courage to be ourselves. quit being hyper. You don't want to be, if you don't want to be perceived as animals, and you want to know that people think you're intelligent and you have something to bring to the table besides physical traits, we have to show those. We have to show more healthy debate shows. We have to show that every time we have a disagreement, we ain't arguing at the top of our lungs about stuff, that we can disagree and have a civilized conversation sometimes. We got to be able to show that, because whenever they show us as aggressive. Black women, they always going off, put their hands in your face, they all in your face. Black men, we anytime we have a disagreement, we fighting. We got our shirts off all the time, just all these things that show us. And then, when they show it, they had these great captions and one-liners behind them and, all this other stuff to make it seem like. So they go back to an earlier point. If you didn't know Black people and you had never met a Black person and somebody showed you what you would see on TV about a Black person, what would be your opinion of the Black person? I mean, we have to really go ahead.
I was going to ask you a question, but I'm sorry, you wasn't finished. You want to go ahead?
No, ask the question.
I was going to ask you, what other race have you seen walking around outside in the public with bonnets, pajamas? Have you ever? No,
you don't see that stuff.
So
you don't see it portrayed on TV. Now, you may see somebody walking around in their pajamas or something outside, but I'm talking about what you see social media wise, what everybody put out in the world for the world to see. No, I have not.
But
and that says something.
When you were saying that we have to change how we are, and I was even thinking about the event that we had at the barbershop, how peaceful it is. Yep. But every time they think that we gather together, it has to end in violence, or there's going to be fighting, or shooting, or whatever. And sometimes it's just making little changes. But yeah.
Look, thanks everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Look, the podcast went over again. We didn't want to stop the conversation, so we just recorded. So there will be a part 2 next Tuesday at 7. Please tune in so you can finish watching our episode on Thotting with the Hot Boyz. And we do know it was most definitely clickbait, but it was something I feel like we needed to address that is an ongoing issue in our community. So again, thanks for tuning in. See you next week. Peace out.